Okay, we stopped to share and we're back there. Hello, everyone. I'm Obie Young with the Florida Aviation Network. Welcome aboard. What you just saw was a trailer, and the trailer comes at the beginning of a film or a video. And we're working today with Alta and Steiner up there, and she's going to give you a little briefing here on how the procedures are. Alta, your screen shared now.
Awesome. All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us again. I see some familiar faces out there, so I'm glad to see that you guys are able to join us again. We've got an exciting day planned for you. Just a few little housekeeping notes. Please keep your microphone muted. You can only use chat to ask questions. I think we'll use the same format. We do have a panel of experts coming in. We've got a retired Air Force colonel coming, who's also a Delta pilot. We also have a fuel manager for a company called Fly Exclusive that's going to join us. We've got an engineer from Piper Aircraft who is going to join us, who's also a huge aviation enthusiast. We also are trying to get an air traffic controller on. She is at work and in the tower, but she's going to take a break to take our phone call. And we also have a aircraft dispatcher for Spirit Airlines, who's also at work today, who is going to take our call while at work and provided time permits for him. So that's going to be a little bit later on. First, we're got just a couple things. I know a lot of questions have been going on. Especially about the merit badge. So you do need to attend all 3 classes or sessions, or you can watch them. They are going to be posted on Florida Aviation Network's YouTube channel. Last week's is already up there, so you can check that one out. Also, if you are not on Scoutbook, I've seen a lot of connections come through on Scoutbook, so that makes it a little bit easier for me. But if you're not, that is okay too. My troop just recently switched. You can go to aviationforscouts@gmail.com to email me. And I will work on getting your blue cards out to you. And I see a lot of questions in the chat room earlier today about, what is an FPG-9? And how do I get the link? The link was sent out with the Zoom link for today. I see somebody has theirs up. If you have an RC plane, feel free to use your RC plane. The questions that will be asked in the Google form after the 23rd will be pertaining to like weight and balance issues and performance issues. So you can definitely, if you have an RC plane that you've already built, you can use that. But you know what? That foam plate works really well for the questions that I'm going to ask. If you did not get the link via email, if you have your parents go back to the original Sign Up Genius, I did put the link in the original Sign Up Genius as well. One of the things, and we're going to talk to a bunch of people today about it, is find out about 3 career opportunities. That's one of the questions that's going to be in the Google form on the 23rd. Let's see, what was my... and just as a reminder, next Saturday, we'll plug it again at the end of this, but next Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, the Florida Aviation Network website, we're going to watch Training Time with Ben Coleman. In that Google form, will be some questions that, pertaining to that. So definitely tune in and watch that. It's a little bit different. You just log into their website and click view the live feed. So we won't be seeing each other on the Zoom. And then if you did not receive the email today with the link, and I had some people send it out different ways, make sure you send me an email once again, so that way you can get the link, because I cannot, without that Google form, I will not be able to issue you a blue card from afar. All right, so if you were interested in the fun patch, that link went out as well. This is the one I recommend. It's from Snappy Logos. I just think this one is appropriate for this age level. Some of them are kind of kitty looking, but this one's kind of cool. And that's not me in the background, so whoever has make sure your mics are on mute, please. And I am gonna stop sharing that and head it back over to Obie to introduce our video and guest.
Okay, we've got 70 on right now, so we're pretty close to where we were the other day.
Perfect.
By the time we get our guest on, we'll certainly be up to that level. And this first video is a walkthrough. By the way, is Patrick on? Patrick with Flight Safety, are you on?
Right here.
Oh, there you are. Great. How are you today, Patrick?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. And Patrick is works at the center manager center in Flight Safety International Center at the Orlando Airport. And Patrick, tell them a little bit more about what you do so I don't stammer all over my words here.
Sure, no problem. My position at Flight Safety is known as the Director of Standards. Basically, my job is to ensure that all the flight training that happens at Flight Safety, so there's 12 huge simulators that you're going to see. So I get to make sure that everybody does things legally within the federal aviation regulations. That's literally my job all day, is to make sure that we're following the rules and that everybody is taken care of properly as far as when we have to put endorsements on people's licenses.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. We've got two videos. One of them is a short video that's about 4 minutes long with a little walkthrough of the center. So if you would just leave your mic open, and if you've got any comments to do there, and then we'll have a minute or two for questions about the center. And then there is a 9-minute and 13-second video of a flight to Aspen or something like that. And we'll warn people at the beginning, there are some alerts on there because it's done at low level. So
Yes.
We'll once again ask you to leave your mic open if you want any comments on there. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
Okay, this is on the fly, everyone. So we're making it up as we go. All right, so now I've got to come over here to share screen and make sure that I have sound right and share right.
There's our training center here in Orlando, Florida. Flight Safety Orlando. This is the main computer room. It supports 8 of our simulators. We have another computer room in the back of the building on the expansion that supports 4 more. Each one of these stacks has its own standalone visual computer system, along with a bank of computers and VME chassis that support the sim. In our East High Bay, we have 6 simulators. We have 4 hydraulic and 2 electric. There's a hydraulic on motion right now. As you can see, it's extended out 18 inches. That's half of the 36 that it has. When it goes on motion, it goes up halfway, and it allows it to pitch up just like it just did. So the back is all the way down, the front's all the way up, so it's on a climb. And that's hydraulics that do that. 2000 psi hydraulics. The electric simulators, a very clean looking motion base, use the electric motors and conjunction with the control cabinets that control each leg. Inside of there are 6 heads, control each one of the 6 legs that allow it to function just like the hydraulics. The expansion has 4 more simulators, 2 on each side. We're in the East High Bay. You can see there's a ramp that's been raised because the simulator is up on motion. We cannot have the ramp down for safety reasons while it's on motion because it might damage the simulator or the ramp. If you look on top of the simulator, you'll see the boxes up there. Those have their projectors. They have the tubes in them for the Vital 9 visual system. We also have a smoke trainer, which is a Citation 10 fuselage that has been retrofitted for us to do smoke trainer. And they evacuate the airplane through this door, through this safety area, when it's filled with smoke. And they learn about the life raft as part of their survival here at Flight Safety Orlando. This is the computer room in the back of the building that supports the rear 4 simulators. The first cabinet is the visual cabinet. The rest of it is all the servers and VME chassis that support the rest of the simulator. This is the Western High Bay. We have 4 simulators in the original side and expansion. So 6 total. There's a crossover to the other side, and there's also brief debrief rooms down that hallway.
I did hear a question about how does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting thing, the way that the flight simulator works. And what I want you to think of is that first shot that Bob took was in what they call the computer room. The computer room sounded really loud, and the reason it was really loud is there's a lot of cooling that needs to be done in those rooms. Those computers have to stay at a temperature less than about 65 degrees. If it gets any warmer than that, it could literally fry those computer internal components. So how does it work? Well, when you're in one of those flight simulators, when you're using any of the controls, whether it's a control, whether it's a button, any of those controls, I'm just pushing a button that sends a signal way back about 100 feet to that computer to tell it what I'm doing. That computer then says, oh, you must want that light to come on, and it sends the information for it to come in. Think of it as just a gigantic video game. You're telling it an input, it goes back to the computer, comes back, but it's all at the speed of light because it's electric. So these things happen instantaneously. If I turn the airplane in the simulator, that time that it takes to go back and forth, you can't tell. It just feels as if I'm just flying the airplane in real time.
Okay, thanks. Next video we're going to have, I forgot that one had some voiceover, and that was Bob Rolfe, who was doing the voiceover there for part of the information. But excellent job. And once again, we'll do a screen share, hopefully here. And there we are. And it's got audio and share, and we'll come over to an Aspen flight, Aspen, Colorado, I guess.
We are taking off at Aspen, runway 15.
I guess he does have some voiceover, but most of it's fairly quiet.
Obie,
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
not seeing the video. We're not
Say
seeing
again?
it.
You're not seeing it? Are you seeing it now? just had another person join.
Is that in the simulator?
That is in the simulator. So as you can see,
Real.
yeah, you see all the mountains and the grass and everything like that. All that information is literally taken off of Google Maps. So the information that the airplane sees as it's flying around is real-time data that's been updated by Google Maps. It's put into this giant computer to render these graphics. It's pretty insane how intensive it really is.
Terrain, pull up.
It's exactly what it would say. So what you can see as he's turning, like I was explaining, every time that you make any kind of input into that simulator, it's not the actual simulator that's doing all the computer stuff. That's way back about 100 feet in that giant computer room. Those legs, those big legs that you saw that are either hydraulic or electrical, basically every time you make a little move, whether it's up, down, left, right, those legs are going to move on all three axes, and it basically will give you an honest feeling of flying an airplane. If you get into this airplane and do training with flight safety, you can actually, in the span of about
Too low, terrain. Too low, terrain.
Yeah, we don't want to get too low to the terrain. In a span of about 2.5 weeks, a pilot can go from not ever seeing this airplane in his life to being able to walk out of that simulator, go across the street to the Cessna dealer, get in an airplane and fly it home. That's how realistic these are.
And which aircraft is this that they're
I
in?
believe this one that they're flying in is the Encore Plus. So it's a CE 500, one of the old original Citation jets that first came out.
Terrain. Pull up.
Throttle more and pull back on the yoke.
That's pretty much what I would want to do. So I think when they went in to do this demonstration,
Caution, terrain.
they really wanted everyone to see how intense the graphics are. Now, of course, it's a video that was shot on somebody's cell phone.
Caution, terrain.
And I can
Caution,
promise you
terrain.
this, it does not look choppy when you're flying. It is very smooth, very seamless, as if you're actually flying in the airplane in that terrain.
What flight sim is that?
This one is the Encore Plus, the Citation 500 Encore Plus.
Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Terrain. Pull up. Pull up. Terrain, terrain. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Caution, terrain. Terrain, terrain. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
Well, just in
Terrain,
case anybody's
terrain.
wondering,
Pull up.
what we do when we do
Pull
flight
up.
training,
Pull up.
this is not how we do
Pull
flight training.
up.
This is
Pull up.
there's a bunch of pilots
Pull
in the
up.
sim having a
Pull
lot
up.
of fun doing stuff that they
Pull
usually
up.
don't do.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Terrain, terrain. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up.
Pull up. Terrain, terrain.
Is that the runway coming up there?
It
Yep.
looks like it.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
pause
that's-
it right here for a second. If I can get the answer before I can get it right there. What is this instrument right here?
So that instrument right there that you're circling, that's known as the PFD. So basically that's what you use during what they call when you're in flight
It's the
training,
PFD.
the PFD, pilot flying training, pilot flying device. So display. What I'm trying to do with that instrument is make
Flight
sure that I have the attitude correct. I can see on the left-hand side what my airspeed is. On the right-hand side, I can see what my altitude is. And just to the left of that, I can see what's known as the vertical deviation. So I can see if I'm going up or down and how many feet per minute. There's a lot of information in that one little box compared to what it used to be back in the days when I first started flying, where you had a whole bunch of round dials all over the place that you're trying to do what they called keeping your scan up. Down what Obie was just looking at is the DGI or HCI. So basically I'm going to get all my heading information and my directional information from that down there. The little caret in the middle is green, and that's basically saying this is what heading I'm on. The one to the left that's in the blue says what heading I should be on. So if I'm flying an approach, it'll tell me what my inbound heading should be looking at that little blue number. And then the green number is actually what I'm doing. Those can be different based on winds. So if there's a lot of wind and I have to have a crosswind correction in, I might be flying a heading of 150, but the runway might be.
Okay, and that's one of the questions that y'all might see. How are runways numbered aligned with? Is it true north or a magnetic north? So y'all remember that. We're going to start the motion again, and here we go. You see the runway numbers?
Minimums,
What I'm talking
minimums.
about.
So I did see one question that was a really great question. And that was, how do you fly with mountains like that so big being all around? I can tell you from personal experience, I have had over 60 approaches in the Aspen Airport in a Beach jet and a Falcon jet, and also a Gulfstream that I used to fly. And the way that you're able to do that is one of two ways. Number one, you have to be familiar with the area. You never want to go someplace that you don't know what it's like or what the terrain's like. So you're always going to make sure to prepare yourself for every flight. There's maps that show the different terrain, and then there's experience. I've been there so many times, I just know where all those hills are. That's part one. You can fly in there when it's visual day. So on that day that they're flying, it was VFR, so visual flight rules. You can fly in there, find the mountain by going over the mountains, and then go down into the airport. The other way is when it's cloudy. And this is just like any other airport in the world. You'll have certain instrument approaches that will take you right to the runway. So when I would fly into Orlando, and as we all know, sometimes during the summer, it gets pretty stormy and rainy and the clouds are really low. I'm literally flying the entire way on instruments until I get to about 200 feet above the ground. I break out of the clouds, and there's the runway right in front of you. That's what those instruments do. That's why that HSI underneath that shows you the direction of the runway, that's how we do that. And I see, where and how much is the sim? That's a big question. So that particular simulator is in Orlando. So the flight safety at Orlando, it's right at the big airport, at the north side of the airport, right near runway 18 right. Now, as far as cost goes, cost for a simulator, believe it or not, you can buy an airplane, one of these airplanes, for about $3 million. A cost of a simulator is about $15 million. So those simulators cost an extremely large amount of money. It's a very big thing with a lot of moving parts. So yeah, $15 million for one of those simulators.
Alta, we've still got people coming in. We're up to about 75 now.
Awesome, great. And I know all of some of our guests are logging in as well.
Okay.
I do housekeeping. Ladies and gentlemen, please be respectful. I don't want to have to remove you off the call, but if I have to, we will. So keep chat down to questions only. And Patrick, you're doing a fantastic job reading the questions as they come through.
I'm trying to keep up with them. So I do see, so to try this in is 15 mil. No, to go into the simulator for training. So it depends upon what kind of training somebody's doing. If they come in for initial type, in other words, they've never flown the airplane, they need to get that type rating on their certificate so that they can fly for a job. It costs anywhere between $20,000 to $50,000. It's very expensive, but then again, everything in aviation is extremely expensive. Now a recurrent, like you're coming in you're once every 6 months for charter people or once every year for others, the price gets a little bit better. Now it's only going to be about $10,000 or $12,000, but that's still a lot of money for aviation. It's a very expensive thing. And I do see something question, why was the sink rate cause stress? All right, so let's talk about something like that. So we're getting into a little bit more of how to fly an airplane. So when you're talking about flares and you say 20 feet off the ground, believe it or not, that would be extremely low for a jet. We begin usually doing a flare more around a 50 or 60 foot mark. So when you come over the threshold, in other words, when you fly over the numbers, you're already starting to do your flare. You don't really flare like you do in a Cessna 172 or a Cirrus. It's not that kind of a flare. So you're not really pulling back to slow it down. The only reason you're pulling back slightly is so that the nose wheel doesn't make contact first. You always want the main gear to land first.
Let's see. We talked about Keaton from Tennessee had a question. If I was at the airport, how much would it be cost to use? I think actually Patrick answered that.
Yeah, let me see. Yep, I did. Yep, I answered that one. Orlando, and a lot of money. More money than I've got.
All right. So does anyone else have questions for Patrick from Flight Safety?
Thanks, Patrick, so much. And thanks, Bob, for the two videos. They were interesting, to say the least. I'd like to underscore that normally you're not flying that low, and normally you wouldn't be hear the pull up all the time, but that is a safety feature that's built into the aircraft for low-level flying. And remember, you may be asked sometime, how are runways numbered? What does those numbers mean? Is it true north or magnetic north? And let me see, we've got 37. We got a few minutes here. Let me pull up here and see what this is here. Have you ever flown in any type aircraft? This is a poll question here. And this is just to see the pulse of the audience. And you should have that up there now. Have you ever flown in any type airplane, a small one, an airline, or anything? And we usually give you about 30 seconds to answer this, but we'll give you just a few seconds more. We got 20 seconds there, so you got 10 seconds to go.
One question, does that mean you've been in an airplane?
Any kind of airplane, a airliner, Delta, Eastern, American, anything like that, or small general aviation airplane like we talked about with the first session. Any kind. Okay. With 45 seconds, we're going to end the polling there.
Oh.
And Altair, it looks like I'm going to share the results here. 67% have been in some type of airplane, and 33% have not been in one before. So this, we're at least reaching some folks there that haven't been exposed to it. So that's one of the purposes of doing this, to expose people to aviation and aviation safety. Let me see, how do I go to the next poll? I'm sure there's some way that I know how to do that. Okay. Relaunch polling. Have you ever flown in any type of aircraft? Well, that's what happens when you do polls and you.
That's this.
Same question again?
Yeah, it's not the same one, I think.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how to go to the next poll. Okay, polls. Well, so much for that. Oh,
Okay.
here it is right here. Boom. Poll number 2. Okay, now we got some. Have you ever thought about learning to fly? Have you ever thought about it? Yes or no? Simple question. And you could thought about it at last week or this week, or I guess next week wouldn't work because that's in the future. So if you've ever thought about learning to fly, and we're going to talk about some things in a few minutes. Not everybody is going to be a pilot, right, Alta?
That's right. We've got several guests on that are going to talk about what they do in aviation.
Yeah, so don't think that you have to be a pilot. You do not have to be a pilot. There are pilots and mechanics and flight attendants, and there's also dispatchers and controllers and all kind of things. That's long enough for that. We're going to end the polling there, and we have here are the results. 68% or 40 of them said yes, and 32% said no. So now y'all can see that, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll stop, share results. And now I can try to go to question number, hey, I'm learning as I go. Have you learned anything new since the two Zoom meetings, the last meeting and this meeting? Have you learned anything at all? Yes, no, we're not sure. These are not difficult questions.
So I do see in the chats that Ryan from Washington, who was actually asking lots of questions last week, is planning on being a pilot. So
Great.
awesome. There's always a few in the group, so I love it.
Okay. We're coming up on 27, 28,
Oh,
29,
he wants to
30
share.
seconds.
Sure.
And there we are. 96% say yes. 2% said no, and 2% not sure, which is fine. Okay, we'll close out the polling, and that's so much for my skill with polling. Okay. All right, we're coming up within 3 minutes on our next guest. Do we take a
Yes.
short break, or do you go
Well,
ahead and?
Actually, because of time constraints, we're just going to bring her right on.
Okay.
And then I think we're good. If anyone does have to take a break, they're at home, they can do so at their own pace.